Hello, my name is Catherine Toomey, and my business is Catherine Toomey Massage, and I am talking today to Lisa Hoffman, and this is a conversation that's come together because I've been quite interested in her authorship and really engaged with the books that she's had published. And I feel quite lucky because she's agreed to join me today and have a conversation about her experiences of putting the books together and how that came about. And I'd like to introduce her. Lisa, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Lisa Hoffman, and I am a goddess book author. I have also done other books, but that is my main focus now. And I'm delighted to be on here. Thank you so much. I love connecting with like-minded people, so I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That's really great. Now, the first book that I sort of got engaged with was Awakening Aphrodite. Is that right? Embodying Aphrodite. And I love Aphrodite. So when I saw that title, I was just like, wow, I have to know what's going on with this. Because when I see things that are anything to do with Aphrodite, I'm quite there for it. So could you just touch on a little bit about the two most recent publications?
So I did Awakening Lilith first and then Embodying Aphrodite. But I am just about to drop another one called Priestess of Lilith, which is a deeper dive into the Lilith the whole story.
Okay, before we start, I'm just going to go through a list of words that I've just kind of thrown together. And I just want you to give me one sentence of what Lisa Hoffman does to embody this emotion. So the first one is power.
Power. Oh, the first thing that comes to mind is knowing yourself.
Okay, shadow.
Shadow. Ah, okay. Shadow is that which is within us, that we don't always get to see. But when we do, we can pass through it and let it go.
Okay, femininity.
Oh, well, that's going to be individual. The way I think of feminine as a huge whole divine feminine side, as opposed to then masculine, would be well, I magic is the first word that comes to my mind. Um, and so then bringing it down into human beings and into individual experience. For me, femininity, when I first started learning goddess stuff, um, it was a softening. There was a softening there.
Okay, I love that. That's good. Witchcraft.
Oh, wise woman. Yeah,
I love
wisdom.
it. Priestess.
Oh, good question. This one took me a long, long time and this is only my own personal experience and answer, but priestess is a woman who has discovered or remembered or beginning to remember and interact with the divine feminine energies from an awakened perspective at any capacity and is learning them through life.
Okay, I love it. Healing.
Uh, Healing. Oh, that's a good one. Healing is it's a choice. I think it's a choice.
Change.
Change is transformation and is an innate part of life.
And lastly, rewrite.
Rewrite. I think that comes back to power, funnily enough.
Okay.
Um, it's like taking in that ability to, because you know yourself, to make your choices.
Tell us about your encounter with self-empowerment, deep spiritual connection, self-discovery. Talk to us about that.
Okay, well, this is a lifelong journey for me. So I've been on the spiritual journey, my mum would say forever. Um, but the goddess path really opened up to me when I was around 19, 20. Before that, it was more the witchcraft pathway. And then the empowerment. So a lot of that goddess journey was opening up to divine feminine energies and learning, but also at the same time having to walk through my own shadow over and over again. And then empowerment, came in small pieces, but really it wasn't until 2020 when that's what I call my full spiritual awakening. So even though I had mystical experiences before and did a lot of goddess work and, did all that and learnt all that and was enmeshed in it, it wasn't until this full awakening that I really felt empowered.
We're going to
So,
start by asking you about the origins and the calling to work with Lilith as an archetype. So, how did I know that you've said quite a few things, but there is just so much vastness in the goddess world. So, what are the sort of hinges of emotion that found you speaking so wholly and so authentically about Lilith?
so when I sat down to write a goddess book, I was just like, oh, I'm just going to write a goddess book. It's what I know. So I'll just write. But what happened was I just started typing and it was a whole experience in itself. So it came through me. So that's why I call it channeling. Um, so there was many, many experiences where I was reading it at the same time as learning it for the first time. Um, I tend to work very highly on vibrations. So a lot of those feelings and emotions are more vibrational now. And I can literally feel vibrations.
Do you feel
Um,
like do you feel like it was an untaming? I mean, you describe Lilith not as a villain, but as untamed. I
yeah.
really like the idea of this sovereign energy because I think that's really relevant to how I go about things that I'm doing. I just have this accumulation of sovereignty, no matter what. It's like a defiance. Could you just describe how do you use what you've channeled to empower yourself?
So you mentioned before the Lilith archetype. So if we break that down further, rather than the characteristics of the Lilith story, the
I
most
would
recent
love
one
that.
is the one known.
Break it down. I would love that.
Yeah, yeah. So the most recent version that people tend to talk about is, the first wife. In my understanding of reading back, she actually wasn't the wife; she was the first
So this is the
potential
first the
partner.
first wife of Adam, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So Adam and
But
Eve.
and that's
So describe Adam and Eve just briefly.
Oh yeah, I forget that everybody doesn't know this story. So Adam and Eve in the Jewish, the Hebrew, I think it's the Hebrew Bible, the Adam and Eve story in Eden. Before Eve, there was Lilith. So Adam was there with God, and then I don't know why, but he wanted a person. God brought in Lilith, and he wanted her to lie beneath him, and she just said no and left. But
Okay.
they didn't get married. It's not in the story as far from what I've researched.
Okay, but I mean,
Um,
really, how did she get to be so famous? I mean, plenty of goddesses have like had 10 husbands or like the
yeah, yeah,
incredible
exactly. It's
stories
because
and
that's not all of her story. That's only a tiny part of her most recent
that's
incarnation of the story.
okay.
Yeah,
No, no, no. I mean, but
yeah.
it's
And
good
her
to have.
true,
Go on.
yeah. She's actually an energy form of divine feminine. So she was there before human beings and before even, you know, people walked around. So she is an energy that is always present. And that energy is about going forward in life.
Is this, Lisa, is this why you connected to shadow work? Because I'm starting to feel like I had some
Yeah, yeah,
shadow issues
yeah,
going on.
yeah,
Suddenly,
yeah,
there
probably,
was a fight. There
probably.
was a fight because I have such a connection to the Jewish faith. I spent, like maybe 5 years or something converting to Judaism before having a falling out with my Jewish partner. So I think that's why I really resonate well with this sort of perspective because I tend to like the Mary Magdalene to kind of, I imagine Lilith and Mary Magdalene, they're like fighting, like that kind of scenario. As far as my shadows go.
That's
Do
a super
you
interesting one. Yeah.
do you find it confronting to talk to people about shadow work?
So that's only just starting to manifest up now. Obviously, writing in the books, I can rely on my own experiences to talk through story, and relate then what is available in myth and archetype to the parallels of my own story. But it does seem like the future is calling me forward to bring up this shadow work more and more. Obviously, I have my own version, and I think other people have their own version. But I think it's super important because it doesn't matter if you're aware of it or not, but we do get thrust into shadow all the time.
Do you think
And
that
it's how we deal with it.
do you think practices like look, I feel like this conversation is higher than where, like, I feel like I do things that are a little bit witchy, but I don't, and I can easily label myself as a sort of a witch because I do the Reiki and I light the candles and I have like I'm affiliated with places that are witchy, and if you put it into a bigger scope, witchy is just witchy. It's like whoa. But it's so interesting if you go up all the way up to the pyramid, to the top pinnacle of this shadow work with Lilith, it seems like you get to the ultimate priestess and then we're like whoa. And I find that really interesting because it must mean that there is a sense of grounding that needs to be established to be able to have those conversations. Talk to me about
Yeah,
that.
I think that's important. That was one of your questions that I probably found the most thought provoking that I had to sort of sit with, because I'm not 100% sure if I did it really well when I was growing. I just was thrust into shadow work all the time naturally from life. And I had to find my way, which I do have a technique now that I use, but it's about dropping out of the mind and into that vibration. So that is grounding for me, because I don't create narratives surrounding it that can catch me into further
That's
perpetuations of the shadow.
perfect word. That word narrative is just totally summing up this sort of a conversation where we're just talking about talking. I'm not saying anything. I just find that the energy itself just goes woo, and I love
Yeah.
that because that is I love high energy. I am that person that does like it. So we're talking about shadow and integration. So you talked about the most common shadow energy for you is like a vibration. Um,
Mm.
so do you, I mean, where do you get your energy from ritual, or do you get it more from, but there must be a ritual that you have.
So I'm a meditator, so I meditate every day. Um, Quick short story deviation. When I had my awakening, I was meditating up to 3 hours in different sessions throughout the day. And I was like, just wanted to throw that in there because a couple of years after that, I got a free degree given to me. I know that sounds strange, but that does happen. And I started using my mind a lot more. So now I'm just down to a daily practice in the morning of meditation. And that is important because it's the mental side of things is totally different to the open spaciousness side of things when we talk about vibration.
Mm-hmm.
So my practice that grounds me every day and keeps that consistent is meditation.
Mm.
And that keeps that spaciousness open so I can tap into the energies. But if life throws me a curveball, which happens all the time,
Mm.
and I feel like my energies are starting to go off or my mind's starting to take triggers, and that to me is a call to shadow work. I take myself off to bed and I do not emerge until
Mm.
I've
I just,
passed through the gates.
I think it's so important to include in the idea of even reading a book that's related to channeling an energy like Lilith. It's really important to include how it's going to not not include maybe the grounding and the support that can be really important if you're going to take it seriously, if you're going to dismiss or just cast aside, which is my idea of shadow work, is to kind of go, well, oh, I'm casting that aside. Why am I doing that? And then look at that. So I think that's why I really wanted to just have you say that, just to kind of hear you say that you meditate every day is really valid, because I think that when you're using energy that is communally used all over the world, but then you're just kind of the tip of the iceberg in your own imagining of what you're thinking about and what you're creating about any sort of subject, but especially goddess work. I'm so glad that we're talking about the importance of doing inner work as well. We're talking about channeling and transmission and how you've written a book, Awakening Lilith, and that you have a second book that is again going to be more about Lilith. Is that right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically taken the first book and then gone even deeper. So lots of new knowledge has come through for me through more channeling, but also then I went back and I read some of those old tablets, inscriptions of her previous incarnations. And she's all through history in various forms, if you trace back the name through time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
interesting.
So you're doing channeling, but you're also doing research.
Yes, yeah, 100%. So I channel first, but then sometimes the research leans to new ideas, but then sometimes it doesn't feel right. So then I'll drop into meditation. Sometimes I have to explore it through a meditation and just really bring in that essence and see what comes. Sometimes I get visions, whatever comes. I usually write it into the book.
No, I'm appreciating how much information must be in the book. So you speak about using energetic techniques and meditations and rituals to heal deep wounds. Could you speak to us about a technique that you would use from the book Awakening Lilith and how it works in practice to soften?
I totally advocate, and I advocate for meditation. So that is about the whole practice of meditation is about softening because it's all about letting go and surrendering. And I think I know people struggle with it because of the busy mind, but that is the doorway in to go through that busyness. Um, so that's just the best. That is the one I want to continuously lean into for saying is awesome.
Talk to us about the archetypes again, going back to the Sumerian sort of mythology, because I love history. And I feel like when I'm looking for information about a goddess, the thing that I really want to know is the historical facts, or even just if you could tell us the dates or the eros for us as civilizations when we've looked at Lilith as an entity that has been something that we would be wanting to be educated about.
Yeah, so most people or some people know about the Adam and Eve version of Lilith. So that's like what 2000 years ago to 4000, then goes back towards well, it will be six because it's the additional 2000 to the Sumerian times where there was words around that time used that were like Lil or Lilithu, and it was a collection of spirits or entities that were really threshold spirits. So that same part in her Adam and Eve version where she chooses to, nah, not for me. I've got to go this way on my own path. That's that sovereign power that people relate to. Even back then, before she was more stabilized into a story, she was called upon into the homes of the people and known as that threshold guardian of that choice. So knowing who you are and what you want to do. So back then they called when people were having births and things like that. Or if it was like nighttime, or they wanted to protect their house because they knew what they were choosing, and there was that threshold element. So she's also in another story, and I don't know if I'm saying this right, but the Inanna in the Hooplu tree, which is like, the way I see it is the world tree, and how the world tree comes down a river, and then it's taken to Inanna's garden and planted there. The way I see, when you look at that story, she actually put herself into that tree and threw that tree into the path of women. So there's this whole narrative around her knowing, or this vibration knowing what it wants to do to go forward.
Yeah. Wow. Is there like a language that connects itself to the goddess Lilith?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I mean, just I'm interested in the origin, because I feel like the story, it's not a human story, and it seems to
No, it's not. Yeah.
darker, and the thing with darkness is that you want it to encompass some kind of humanness, but then also I understand, like in doing shadow work, it's okay to kind of have a relationship to your own life. So I feel like, especially when you're talking, let's talk about astrology. Let's talk about the cycles of the moon and nature, and the connection to Lilith energy, the feminine cycles. Just giving it, I want to give it like a 4D relationship to how we can see it, apart from what could be just a statue to look at.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So she's definitely much more than that statue. Um, so if we think about cycles, like, so you're born and then you do all these cycles and then you die. That, and even that's a big cycle, and astrology is many cycles, and everything is cycle. The moon cycles around and everything like that. Um, one of those cycles is how I see an archetype, just trying to put this into context to that bigger question that you're asking. And I think there's so many things coming through. I was like, which way do I go with this? I just want the simplest way. If we want to get to that 4D aspect, that archetypal, larger perspective, but still encapsulates the human story. You asked me in the beginning, what do I think change means, or relationships with the word change. And that is basically the archetype in that level. So but the power to do it awakened. So that's the whole little story. And I think the reason why it gets darker along the period of time is actually the human trying to interpretate that energy.
Yes.
And trying to control it too much. And the darkening happens because of the control.
Yes.
So we're now at a stage of loosening the control, which is why Lilith is becoming more everywhere, even in that movie Wicked, like that, to me, that new movie, the green character, she is very much the Lilith character.
Yeah.
It's a freeing up of the control. Yeah.
Yes. When you said the word change, that's when it just kind of dropped, where I was able to imagine that pivot, or that exchange that you have when a change comes into focus. That's a moment in itself. And we experience that in life. We experience chosen change. We experience unchosen change. And definitely in shadow work, I think that we try and look at those cornerstones to try and decide, like, are we good with it? Are we not good with it? How are we going to recover? Is there trauma? All those things happen at that kind of corner moment when there's change happening. So I can imagine that that's a really good place to insert this Lilith character, because it is like it's part of our knowledge, as part of our education. It's part of our history. The knowledge of this character, this goddess being available to us, is part of education. If if you study the different goddesses that have, spent time in the light, so to speak. So I'm appreciating a slightly new understanding of Lilith, and that it is difficult because you do want to make. I want to make it a thing. I need to have a thing, but it really isn't. It's more like an unmade choice, whether it's good or bad in a way. Would you agree?
Because not all choices we get to choose.
Yeah,
Sometimes we're thrust upon a path that we don't actually choose, but we can choose how we can be within that circumstance.
and that's
And
about
that
shadow.
energy carries it through. Yeah, that's right.
That's
That's where
about
it
shadow
connects
work
deeply.
as well. Yeah.
And
Uh,
Black Moon Lilith is very much about shadow work. So they can see her astrological connection. And
yes.
that's a cycle in itself.
Yes, no, exactly. I think, look, I have a Scorpio moon, so I really love the deep and the kind of, this is really something I'm really trying to understand, because I was a little bit scared for a second, and I'm thinking like that's even the black as black doesn't really scare me. But if you include that moment of choice, or that moment where choices are made, that kind of helps me, because that is part of that happens in life, and it's also part of shadow work. So that's really good. We are really bringing Lilith into this conversation, which is really what I wanted. So power into the body day to day, especially with people who are used to living from like restricted or suppressed kind of ideas. Um, would you recommend meditating and becoming educated about our goddess Lilith?
I think if your intuition, if people can go into themselves and feel what their best way forward is, then that's the right way for them.
Yeah, that sounds good. Now I've got, just give me a second. Okay, sorry. So Lilith is seen well, talk to me about interacting with social structures as contributing to broader or collective healing. Talk to me a little bit about that. So other
Um,
sorts of places.
so are you meaning like because I do collective healing probably through shadow work. That's where shadow work has led me to sometimes, if it comes naturally, not if I mentally call it in. Sometimes you go there, you can feel it vibrationally, but so and they naturally fall into the vibrational structures that form around us. So it's
Yeah.
probably a different perspective than
You know what I love that there isn't an answer. I'm actually asking, and then as I ask the question, that's nothing. I'm thinking in my brain, I'm thinking that's exactly what this goddess is about. It's about dissolving all those
yeah,
relationships to you know, structures. It's a structure, it's like an
yeah.
anti-structure. I really like that. But we do
There
want to
is
talk about,
something. Sorry, can I just say there is something on the other side of that dissolving that becomes more about, you know, how you're talking about the 4D element that draws through a more 50 element through that space that's left over from the dissolving of the structure. I don't know if I'm going too woo woo now, but it's like an energy. Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that
no,
for
no, no,
those
no, no,
who
it
watch
is.
it and can resonate. Yep.
I can actually explain that. So I love the 3D, 4D, 5D energy vibe, because I completely understand, like you say, 5D is an energy, whereas what when we're talking about um, the Lilith as a structure, or like I said, like a statue or something like that, that's completely different. You choose, you make a decision, you just go, oh, I'm in that, and then you might go, oh, I can go and do something else. And I think that Lilith really does stand for a beautiful pinnacle of our goddesses, where it is just one where you do kind of, it is, she's such a deep um shadow work, a goddess that you would want to embody to do shadow work on yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I can see how when you're bringing through energy, yes, that's going to be energy and in a kind of, from the point of view of dimensions, it's obviously not in the 3D dimension, obviously, because that's where we are. But you would go on to meditate and use different dimensions to contain a higher depth. And I'm really appreciating that, because that's something that you do in meditation. That's something you do on a daily, as a daily experience. And you're the person that's presenting to us this shadow work, and using Lilith to guide you through shadow work. So if someone is hearing the word Lilith for the first time, or is curious but cautious, what invitation would you give to them to begin exploring awakening Lilith in their own life? And what is a small first step?
Um, I would say if you feel comfortable with it, just speak out an intention. So come to your own understanding of what you would be looking for or what's resonating with you, even simply. It doesn't have to be a big thing, just a little bit like, oh, I'd like to know a little bit more, and speak it inside yourself or outside and ask for guidance, and allow it to come to you that way.
And obviously, reading your book, Awakening Lilith, that's going to just have such a really, that's going to have all the information that you could want. It's going to have everything that we've talked about: origins, calling, and really good information. Thank you for joining Voices of Vision, and I really appreciate your time, Lisa, taking time out to talk to us, because this is your project. This is not an easy subject to talk about, because there are lots of different goddesses and gods, and we draw on mythology, and we draw on people from the past, and we use their history and their education that they've already presented, and then we take on that knowledge. But there really isn't the same sort of structure that for our goddess Lilith and working in shadow work. There really isn't the same kind of construct that has been, um, you know, like a structure. There isn't it's not a really big sort of, oh, I'm lost for words. Just explain to me, like, do you feel like you're in a really small little field with your stories?
Um, It's funny you say that because paradoxically, I would think so. But what's happening is I can see from the sales of the books that it's actually people are wanting it. They are wanting to say, okay, that I don't like that, but I want to know why because I want to walk forward, and that I don't want that blocking me anymore. I want to know myself
Hmm.
through. I'm not afraid. I don't want to be afraid of every little thing anymore.
Yeah, and definitely journaling is a way to sort of get that shadow work, a process of shadow work developed out into your life in a 3D form, so that you can see where you're working. And I've been like, I have diaries going all the way back to when I was like a teenager, some of which I'm only recently thrown out. But I think that it is highly plausible to be able to write out the emotion that you're wanting to just contain. And especially with shadow work, we just highly recommend some meditation, highly recommend some guidance, highly suggest, what about even just some scents or some crystals? Do you kind of have anything like that you can recommend as part of the ritual experience?
So I'm well, my favorite crystal is rose quartz. It's something I always buy a chunk of it at every market I go to, and then when someone needs it, I gift it away. So it's like this. That's a ritual in itself, just that momentum of how that happens. But like if you're feeling like you need extra support, you can just lie down with it or hold it. It's so beautiful. Um, but also too with the journaling, if you're finding that you're stuck or something in particular is really energetically getting to you because the emotion is a little bit stuck there or it's intense, if you can drop out of the thinking that's contained in it and get into the vibration that sits underneath the word, and it is just a feeling and it can be intense, it will just let it feel it, it will release on its own. And that is a very helpful, quick tool that I have a feeling will become more and more known as future continues on.
Yeah, I really like that. Thank you so very much, Lisa, for joining us and having this conversation. Embodying Aphrodite was that's another book that you have available as well. And today we've been talking about Awakening Lilith. You have like a deeper version of Awakening Lilith that you're having published really soon, and we really
Yeah.
look forward to reading through that and getting that vibe again, because it really is, it's a solid vibe, a solid energy. And Lisa, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciated it. Thank you. Did you have any links that you can just quickly check in with? And we'll put them
Yeah, I can. If you're interested in shadow work, I offer actually every 9 days I do the Black Moon Lilith cycle, and I send out the email of the energies that are coming through for the 9 day period. So that I just do for free, and it's just an email. I can send it to you. I don't know how you're going to put this
Yes, I'll
on
put it
YouTube,
in.
I think.
I'll put
Yep.
your links into the notes.
Yeah. So I'll give you that one to pop on there.
Thank you very, very much. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much for being with
Yeah,
us.
you
Thanks,
too.
Lisa. Have a
Thanks,
lovely
Catherine.
day. Bye.
Bye.